Because what you're saying is the heart of what the question was.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
It really is. It's like, it's just kind of we stay in our little world as we get older. We just kind of feel, that safety, security of kind of, what, my family, my circle of friends, it's enough of what I have and need. And I think also the motivation of us, like when you're, in our 20s and maybe in our 30s, I suppose, is just to kind of a little bit more of a social butterflies. At least I'm speaking my personal experience. And as again to the 40s, connections becomes a little bit more difficult because it evolves. It's evolved into something where I'm looking for meaningful connections as opposed to just going out and having drinks. Just kind of want to something deeper and something that kind of connects more to the heart. Who understands me, who understands a little bit of my background, and who's more interested in me as a person as well. Rather than superficials.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting past that superficial part is really, it's difficult because you go into the social setting and it's just it's like a reflex. You make the small talk, you do all that, and then you go away and you never get past that initial conversation, even though that person may be extremely interesting and you could foster a good connection, but you never kind of get past that 2-second window of, hi, how are you? Food's great.
Yeah.
Like it's and that is, you're totally right. It's getting.
I was at a friend's party about 3 weeks ago before I went on holidays, and just went there. I probably knew maybe like 2-3 people at most, and and there was probably a room full of like 40 somewhat people, and me being me, I kind of like stayed with that, the 2-3 people that I kind of knew, and then I met a few new people, and hey, how's it going? And again, it was just kind of the surface conversations. I think my former self would have expanded and tried to kind of reach further to make deeper connections, but I kind of had that mindset of like, you know what, I'm comfortable where I am. Like I'm happy with where I'm at. I've got my son, I've got a great job, I've got good friends. I don't know if I have enough space in my life to even kind of draw in anymore. So that's kind of to my own demise, I suppose, right?
I what you had just said before, and you just reiterated about the change in mindset between your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s even. And it's like, as you start to have your life become fuller and fuller, and it's filled with love and space and things and people, time becomes more precious. And so our opportunity cost for what we're willing to invest in a new friendship, and how much time do we have for a new friend when we've got family and friends that need our attention, and we also want time for ourselves. So all the more reason that you're saying that when we're going to make that new connection, what kind of connection is it? We don't want some like half-assed, we want some meaningful, a new friend, but that takes some time and investment. And
I like that word investment, because I think that's so true, because, and then you touched on time for ourselves, which again, from personal experience, when I was younger, time for myself wasn't something that I valued as much as I've gotten older now, where I love my morning coffees all by myself, or I like taking a walk by myself, or whatever, taking a bath. It's just that self-care, that self-time becomes so much more valuable as I get older too. So again, just to echo what you're saying about making new connections, it's kind of like, well, do I really want to invest in it? Because then I'm going to have to give up a piece of myself, right?
That's true, yeah. And also being open and vulnerable that the other person may not be on the same page, that to want that connection as well. But now you've given that initial investment, and there's no necessarily a return on that, and being okay to accept that you may not get the return on that, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it too. So yeah. No, I love that. How's the I'm like trying to find a good spot because I'm outside.
You got a beautiful view there, Janet.
I know. That's how I'm like, look at this view. I didn't want
I know, like right there.
It's just, you can't go wrong with that. So, but it's just and it's coming to Christmas and thinking about all the people, and it's always the same group of friends, and I love them dearly. They're my family, but it's just sometimes you also feel closed in a little bit. And then I'm like, am I growing as a person? And it's not to say that the people that surround me aren't supportive and helpful, but it's just, what do I need to do to grow as a person as well, and then hopefully bring that back to the group so we can grow as a group as well. So That's
You know,
true.
it's funny you mentioned Christmas because I feel, you know, there's a lot of gatherings and get-togethers
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But, you know, and meeting new people, making new connections, it's kind of like I said before, it's like a little bit of my own demise because, like, Christmas time I spend it with family, friends, but it still sometimes feels like a lonely time for some reason. I can't explain it much further than that.
Totally.
And you know, and it's kind of like my own doing of not making that conscious effort to make those connections. I do have to work harder now to make deeper connections and to reach out, you know, like, um,
Yeah.
and, you know, like, truth be told, you know, like, here I am, I'm meeting Stephanie for the first time. Is this going to go beyond this video chat? I don't know. Right. You know, like, maybe, right. But that's kind of my own, you know, I could control that if I wanted to, I could pursue that afterwards, but it's, it just kind of feels like this time of year, it's, we get drawn even more to our kind of comfort group, you know?
Our familiars.
Yeah.
Yeah, our familiars. Yeah.
I love that word, our familiars.
You know, I was thinking about the topic, and you asked about like things you can do, and I thought I'd share a tool that I've used over the years when at times when I felt disconnected and you know, just about relationships. So every year, or sometimes every 6 months, depending on where I'm at, I like to take time to kind of reflect and kind of land and set, you know, like my goals and kind of self-reflection. And one of the tools I use is something that I came across years ago called a relationship chart. Have you guys heard of that?
No.
No.
Okay, so and it's a very strange exercise to do, but I'm going to tell you it's so powerful. So you take a piece of paper and you put a circle in the middle and you put your name right in the center. Now the circle is your inner group of people, your core group of people, the inner circle, literally. The rest of the page is everybody else you know. So you start just writing out everybody you know that's in your life, and you just intuitively, just with your gut, put them on the page wherever it feels like they are in relation to you. Who's the closest? They're sitting right next to you. Who, you know, so you do one, and it's a snapshot of your relationships as they are right now. So then what I do is I'll take a look at that and I'll reflect and I'll be like, is this what I want? Because there have been some times in my life where either I felt disconnected, you know, and I was like, I don't have a heart friend right now. Like I'm not, or my heart friends are far away, you know, or like, I'm like, I feel like I need that, or I need some more social friends. Like I'm feeling like I'm not having enough playmates or activity friends.
Yeah.
Because there's different kinds of friendships, right?
Yeah.
And so based on that, sometimes in my life, there's people that are a drain. And you're like, I love them dearly, but I need to get them out of my inner circle because they're sucking my time and energy and it's just not working. And it's hard to do that. And I'll never like take somebody off the sheet, but sometimes I gently nudge them out of the circle. And so for the second chart, you draw it as you'd like it to be for the next upcoming 6 months or year. And I'm going to tell you, the power in doing that is amazing. And every so often, some years I haven't done it, but some years I have. Most years I do. I'll put in the circle, new person. I'll just put the word new person. And sometimes I'll put one. Yeah, sometimes it's new person, and I leave space for new people. And some years, if my inner circle feels too full, then I won't put new person in the inner circle, but I'll always put new person in the outer circle. Oh. And almost every year, it happens how I've set the intention. And I'm going to tell you, it's so beautiful when that happens. And that one year, there was one person that I wanted to pull into my inner circle. And I actually told her about the chart. And I told her that I pulled her into my inner circle. And I'm going to tell you, ever since then, she's made such an effort to connect. And we have this really deeper connection now.
Wow.
But there's something about expressing that gratitude. You don't have to tell people where they are in your chart.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
The hierarchy.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
I like that visual guide, that, you know, because, you know, a lot of us are visual thinkers, and to be able to kind of capture that on paper, that really does, it gives a lot of power. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and it lets you kind of assess how crowded your life is. Like, and I don't mean crowded but it's like, oh, if you just know you need more space.
Yeah.
Or if you look at that chart and you're like, no wonder I don't have space for somebody new in my inner circle, because it's so full with my family and friends right now. Or maybe there's some people in your life who are a little more needy at that time, and you do need to be there for them. Well, there isn't that much space for new people.
And I like the fact that you touched on how you kind of put people in buckets of categories. You know, the social, the playful friends, and there's the deeper kind of conversation type friends, and there's, you know, the energy drainers, or but necessary part of your group, right? And I think that's really important when it comes to connections, because balance of a little bit of everything is important too, right? So to make sure that we have that time to go out and just be silly, have fun, have a few drinks or whatever it may be, right? And then there's times when, these meaningful conversations are important. It helps us kind of grow and learn, right? And of course, family time is important as well, right? So all that, and recognizing all that is really, really, I guess, paramount, I guess, in our connections.
I think that's super interesting. Just even being able to differentiate and know where to put someone as well, because I don't often think of it in that fashion either. So yeah, it'd be an interesting exercise to see just where people exactly land, and then maybe, you know, reassessing after that. So, but I love the fact that you're,
you know, not, you made me think about it.
Yeah.
You made me think about my current, you know, network of friends, and I'm thinking, you know what? Very seldom do my friends cross over into like that playful social group to the deep, meaningful conversation. Usually, they're kind of like in more of a clear, distinct bucket, right? And that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
But then you go, maybe that's okay. Like maybe that's exactly the beautiful, perfect nature of that relationship, and you wouldn't want to change it, because then there's some people, like I have one person who I don't think, actually two people that I don't know if I'd hang out much with them on that social level, but man, we know each other's souls. Like we have these like deep conversations, and they know all my stuff, and yet I'm not going to really I'm not going to go party with them. Because that's not the nature of it.
Yeah.
Janet, just excuse me for a sec. I just got to get a Kleenex.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I got one here.
Sorry, we don't have a way to share yet. Maybe in the future. Yeah. No, I can't believe in all of our conversations we never come across that one. That sounds like fun. I'm like,
thanks.
I'm gonna be charting, and I'll be like in the living room with these big pie charts, of like, because you know I love flow charts, and it's like one of those things, the visuals.
Yeah,
So.
but keep it simple though. Like honestly, just go with your feeling of where people are. You don't even necessarily need to clump them into what kind of friend they are.
Yeah.
The exercise I've always done has just been where they are in relation to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll just naturally put them in different places on the page, and you won't necessarily even know why. It's kind of a weird thing. It just organically happens. And then each year when I've looked at it again, I've looked at some from 5 years ago, and it's weird how much it changes over the years, and it can. It's really powerful. I really recommend it, even every 6 months. But once a year, it's just a beautiful thing to do at the start of a new year or on your birthday.
Right.
What are your thoughts on, you know, like some of the, you know, connections, relationships that we have that we want to improve upon, you know, but, you know, life takes over sometimes, and, you know, people have families that have their own personal schedules, work, whatever it may be, you know, it's, you know, you don't get to see them as often as you'd like, you know, and that's kind of like where I'm at with some of my, you know, longtime friends. It's like, man, when we hang out, about a month ago, we went out for, you know, one of those escape games, and then went out to dinner afterwards. It was so much fun. It just brought us back to our 20s kind of thing, right? It's like, I could do this more often, right? But, you know, one of them has, you know, young kids now. Another one, you know, he works really odd work schedule. It's really tough to kind of navigate ourselves to find that time to do it, you know, to do it more often. And like you said, you know, like as we get older, it's kind of, time is more precious to us. It's more valuable. So we want to invest in that time, but it's sometimes challenging, you know, like to get everyone collected together, you know, and certainly don't get a chance to see the people that I'd like to see as often as I'd like.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
And I like what you're sort of saying about, you know, making that investment. And it's almost like you have to choose as well, because you're choosing whether or not, okay, I know I need to invest in the friends that I already have, because I'm not investing in them as much, because I want to maintain those connections, because those are healthy connections that I already have established. And then trying to find time to create new investments in new connections it's a push me, pull you. And I like what Steph was saying about setting that intention of, okay, well, this is what I want to achieve, and then allotting time to that intention, and then hopefully driving that connection. But it's definitely, for me, it's definitely a struggle. It's just trying to decide, okay, well, I have this invitation. Do I go and try to make that connection, or but I also have this over here that I feel like I've been neglecting, and I need to go back and nurture what I have. And so it's exactly what you just said it perfectly. It's finding that balance and trying to figure that out. And I haven't,
like you said, that push and pull is that's something that I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with, right? That push and pull, that inner conflict of, do I make that effort, or do I make that effort to try to satisfy my intentions of meeting new people, to making new connections, or do I just kind of like, whatever, just surrender to that tug, right? And I think there's some days, you feel like, I could do it, I want to do it, right? And there's some days you just feel like, I'm just comfortable in my PJs and and just my own network. Yeah.
And that's important. I think that's an important part of it that you talked about as well. It's just finding that me time and finding that connection with yourself as well. Because I think one of the thoughts I had was, if I can't connect with me, there's no way I'm going to connect with someone else. Right. And that's why I found that both. I've done your course online, Jason, and Steph. You've talked to me like like crazy times, and so I found that both tools helped me sort of connect with myself better. And though it didn't really impact me right away, I found that over the progressive months after that I was able to actually have space to connect with someone else because I made space in me, which I thought was a really interesting observation that I had at the time. So,
I'm not sure, like, what are your, like, I notice a lot of people, like, go to the gym or even at work, whatever. And there's some just, people are older than me, and even they're just social butterflies, and I'm kind of like sitting there, it's like, man,
how do they do it?
How do they do it? I wish I was like that,
Where's
like,
the magic?
Sudden,
like, can I take what you're taking, because I want 2 of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it depends too if you're more naturally introverted or extroverted.
Yeah.
And how much alone time you need too, and how much. And like Janet said, that was one of the things, that was actually the first thing that occurred to me when you put out that question, was I thought, well, how connected are you to yourself? Because if you're like, and in terms of feeling like you want different connections, I liked I appreciated the why behind it. I guess that's the question, is the why behind it. Is it because for some people it might be they want more distraction. Sometimes I think some extroverts, some extreme extroverts, they just constantly need to be doing, so they need new people to always be doing things with. But if it's about recognizing that the current life that you have, the time that you're spending with yourself, the time that you're spending with the people that you already know, if you have a sense that there's a stagnant quality to it, and you're knowing that you need to grow and evolve, and that it feels intuitively like there needs to be some new people or new energy or something new to bring in to kind of be a catalyst for that, that's a really strong why. And just setting that intention of that why, and following your intuition, and you're just following those connections that feel right to you. Like after you, another tool that I've used over the years, because I had to, was starting to recognize how you feel after you spend time with someone. Not one time, because sometimes somebody can be depressed or need to talk, but over time. Like when you hang out and you're hanging out with somebody, how do you feel after? Is it someone that you need to like, decompress after and be like, oh my God, I need to just talk about this because they were driving me crazy, or you feel judgy about them? Or sometimes you're like neutral. You just feel like, that's nice. And sometimes you feel energized and you're like, oh my God, I feel so great after I hung out with them, And it's like, okay, recognize that and be like, okay, more neutral and good energy. The people who you feel drained with, maybe less of your valuable time with them. And the same thing when you meet somebody new, you kind of go, okay, how do I feel after I'm hanging out with them?
Right.
And trust that as your guidelines, your inner guidepost of, is this a relationship I'd like to pursue?
I'm not sure, Janet, kind of giving the introduction about me, but like, I'm a childhood abuse survivor, and I've struggled with managing depression, anxiety, anger was a big problem for me, especially in my adult years, and just kind of feeling that comfort and safety around new people has been a challenge. So that's kind of an interesting thing that you talked about, when you meet new people, and at the end of the day, it's how comfortable are you with them, right? For myself, it sometimes takes 4 or 5 months, of maybe working with the same person, or going to the gym, doing the same exercise routine. It takes me that long to develop that safety, that trust, that comfort, like you mentioned, right? There's always that feeling of being, judged, initially when, I meet someone. It's like, oh, am I socially awkward? Am I too much of this or too little of that? Kind of that inner voice is kind of telling me I'm not good enough to be, meaningful to someone else's relationship. So that's kind of some of the inner conflicts that I have as well. And it's interesting you talked about just feeling comfortable and running with it, and sometimes it takes a little longer. You're right. The first meeting, it's important that I remind myself that after meeting someone for the first time, that I just don't stop there and make that judgment call. Am I comfortable or not? It's got to be kind of a repeated sequence of meetings and subsequent meetings. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, if I feel organic and natural with them, I could be myself. I could be my goofy self, my goofy, geeky self. Then, yeah, sure. Yeah. I think there's a connection there.
It's so true. That's so true. And yet we're either drawn to someone to keep hanging out with them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes not always for the best reason. Sometimes our old programming drives us to people who aren't so good for us. That happens sometimes too. And that's something to recognize and cut that stuff off. But sometimes, like, I used to think that I was always this kind of love at first sight kind of believer. And it's been true in some cases. I do trust my gut. But I've had a couple people in my life that when I met them, if you told me that I'd be good friends with them, I'd be like, you're totally out of your mind. And they just kind of, because they'd keep showing up in my life, and it just kept happening, and I started to get to know them, and it was contrary to everything I believed about how you make a friend. And so now I have to throw away all my ideas about what it means to trust that like first gut thing. It's like, no, sometimes you got to give somebody a chance, because you don't always know what beautiful magic is in there, because they might have a rough exterior, or you just, anyway, it's just something that I've learned over the years, that I thought I knew how it worked, and I didn't. I was like, ooh, preconceptions out the door.
And that's interesting that you both brought up the word trust as well, because I think making that new connection, there is a bit of trust. You have to develop that. Trust isn't something that just happens in the one exposure. Right?
And that's funny, that because when we were younger, I think it was a lot easier. We just, we met someone at a party, and it's like, I trust them right away.
Just take them at their word, and you're like, want to go out for the weekend? Yeah, sure, why not? Sign me up. And I would never do that now, right? Why? And it's just, why is there that difference? Like, what happened and all that? So. And
that trust, I feel, is kind of developed as we get older. It's kind of like when we start breaking down walls and talking about our vulnerabilities, we get a sense of that trust. Now, you asked the question about meaningful connections that we've made. So I met this guy, Jason. He's a social worker at Fraser Health, and I met him at a mental health conference about 2 years ago now. After I'd given a presentation, he approached me, and he just, he's an extrovert. He's an outgoing guy, and he just super nice. And he was like, "Oh, I loved your story." And he started breaking down his own walls first, and kind of like shared his story, saying, your story resonated in me, and I just felt like everything you were saying was about me. And that right away gave me that feeling of trust in him. And, long story short, we built a connection, and he's a good friend of mine now, that I'm proud to say, because of that trust, that vulnerability that was shared.
That's incredible. That's on the first meeting. That's a really
it's rare. Yeah, for me, it's rare. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever encountered that, to be honest, that someone would be so open and just, here it is, right?
Yeah. And, the funny part about that story is that, Jason and I have been friends for about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And about a year ago, he invited me over to one of his house parties at downtown. And so I was just kind of scoping out his invite list on Facebook, and I saw an old high school friend of mine, Chuck, who I lost contact with for over 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
Was a friend of his. And, we ended up meeting each other at the party, and we reconnected right away. Chuck was my high school friend. I used to go to his house. We used to play,
Wow.
Sega Genesis and video games, watch
Wow.
hockey games together. It was an incredible reconnection.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
That's like finding buried treasure. Like that's
I
just
know.
it's like what
It
happened
is
to
like finding buried treasure.
you know?
It is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like and it's interesting because then you you had such a close connection,
Hmm.
but over time you drifted apart because, like you said
Yep.
before,
Life
life
takes over. Yeah.
takes over, and then
Yep.
you're also dealing with your own trauma. You're also dealing with your own emotions. You really don't have the emotional investment that you can put into something else or someone else, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a really tough thing to do. But that's an incredible story. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. I
But
love
did you say that he came up to you after you had given a talk about your experience?
Yeah. It was a presentation at the Vancouver Mental Health Summit 2016. And so after that, he just right away just came up to the podium, just shook my hand and said, just your story resonated in me, and it just started opening up right away. But I guess it perhaps my story kind of catalyzed him to kind of come forward as well too, right? That trust is kind of a two-way street.
Yeah, I was going to say your willingness to show up and be open and vulnerable is an invitation to having a heart connection with other people.
Mm.
Right? Like if
Good
you're, because it's not like a to-do list. It's not like I'm going to find a new friend and invest in them and spend time. It's like it doesn't kind of work like that.
Yeah.
And I have it right here.
I know, and I know you're very goal oriented.
I know that's part of the problem. I have too many goals, and I'm so methodical. I have a checklist. I always have a checklist, and it's terrible. And you lose that organic feel of let's just have a conversation. So I'm like, let's just have a conversation.
Yeah, I guess, and the question is again, what is it that you're looking for? Because that could be the key to who you attract and how the quality of time you spend with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for a heart friend? I call them heart friends, the person that you can talk about your personal stuff. And I'm not going to talk about my personal stuff with everybody. Some of my fun, social, playful friends, I might mention some stuff because I'm like an open book, but I'm not going to go in and ask them advice, or talk about the biggest issue that's, facing me right now. But then there are some people where you do. So it's like, what exactly, how do you meet those people? I think you were asking is how do you make those heart connections?
Yeah.
Where do you find them?
Yeah. And how do you break down your own barrier, right? To cross that bridge? Because in this example, it's you were there present and you were giving a part of yourself to the audience. And so he came back and he reciprocated. He gave a part of himself to you. And then boom, you got the connection.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
You're just in your day to day, you're running, you're busy. I've got my, RBF face on. I'm trying to catch the SkyTrain, train. And I'm just I'm so focused on getting to where I need to go that I'm not paying attention to what's happening around me or to even any interaction that I have with another human being, right? It's just in the back of my mind and I brush it off and don't think about it. And so I just find it's really difficult to cross that bridge, right?
So what if what you just said is so interesting. I'm like, even just getting on the bus and being in the mindset of being present and open and recognizing what's around you. There might be your new heart friend might be sitting right next to you. Look at our friends who met on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
We have friends who got married and they met on a plane. You know who I'm talking about?
Wow.
You know who I'm talking about, Janet?
I'm trying to think who?
Our friend from Singapore and Korea.
Oh,
they were sitting on a plane together. They have children together now.
Yeah.
So
really?
if you were in that mindset of I got to go,
Yeah.
not actually, who talks to somebody sitting next to them on a plane anymore? I don't.
I
right?
don't.
But sometimes maybe if the feeling is right and you're being present with what is and not in such a, you're being here and not where you're going to be going.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's magic all around us that we
don't
see.
I think there's intent as well though, right? There's intent. If you have the mindset that, okay, I'm gonna go out today and be my best self. I'm gonna be which is being friendly, say hello to people at the coffee shop or the supermarket, whatever, and make random conversations. We open opportunities to allow those new connections in, right? But if we're kind of in the mindset of I'm just gonna go out and pick up my liter of milk and bread and come home and watch my Netflix, well, chances are those opportunities of new connections aren't going to happen, right? So we are the architects of these new connections. It's a matter of finding that desire as well. We have to work harder as we get older, like I said, because we have our own. Everybody's got their own lives, but it's funny because I'm kind of on and off sometimes on online dating sites, and there's so many people out there who are single, who are whether they're or meetups, for example, as well, who are single and they just want to find connections and people to meet new people with, and you'd be surprised, I guess, and with how many people out there are looking for the same thing, but just not having that intent of creating those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's just getting there and getting past your bubble, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
That's the hard part. So.
And and a lot of us make up a lot of excuses for ourselves too. Oh, I don't have time. I'm busy, or this and that, right? Yeah, yeah. So.
No, it's very, very true. Very, very true. So I wanted to give you guys a chance, though, because I didn't really, at the beginning, I didn't get a chance to have you guys each talk about what your current projects are, because I think what you both do is so super important in terms of getting people to look inside and to look outside and to improve quality of life. And I appreciate both of you so much for everything that you've done so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to sort of chat about that or.
Well, thanks, Janet. As you know, I published a book last October, 2017, Living with the Dragons, my personal development book, memoir on my personal life growing up here in Vancouver, kind of childhood abuse survivor, facing a lot of discrimination growing up in the 80s here in Vancouver. Just kind of the hardships of my family immigrating here, and then just having my own family personal struggles, older brother with schizophrenia developed, and it was something which our family just didn't have the recognition, the space, the education to kind of help them through that, all of which kind of bled into my adult life, and led an adult life of depression, anxiety, anger, in relationships, with ex relationships and with my son even, and and kind of how there was a transformative moment where I kind of like realized something's not right here. I got to look inside myself and take accountability for my abusive and angry behaviors. So, sought a lot of counseling. Long story short, kind of became kind of a mental health advocate for communities, and spoke at a lot of events, and now online instructor on Udemy on stress and managing mental health. I recently I launched a couple of new online courses on Udemy, Undoing the Effects of Childhood Abuse. Just an introductory workshop on kind of like talking about the things that are difficult to talk about, right? By opening up about my own vulnerability, I'm hoping to reach out to others out there, kind of like how I connected with Jason and how he reconnected back with me, right? So that's kind of my intent right now. Mental health is a big thing for me and my family. And I feel like we're breaking the walls and the stigma, but I think there's still quite a ways to go. Janet, I know you took part in that first workshop, managing stress tools. The interesting story about that is that I was talking to my coworker Doris, and she's a millennial. So, well, how's mental health in the world of millennials? Like the discussions, she said, it's still kind of stigmatized, right? I think a lot of us are kind of feeling like maybe the word stress might be better used, right? Hence, I kind of use that as a platform, as an inspiration to kind of like make it more catered to everybody. So I called it the stress tools management workshop, right? But could have easily been called the mental health workshop. So I think there's still quite a ways to go, and that's kind of my goal right now, is just to keep on plugging away at talking about mental health and breaking barriers.
And I love the course. It just,
Thank you.
Simple, effective tools that they make sense and they're easy to use, but it really makes you think as well. I had to go back to the course multiple times because I'd be like, that's a great question. I can totally do that. And then
thank you.
I'm staring at the blank page going, I really don't know how to fill this out. I really have to dig deeper. And then I have to go away, think about it, come back in a week or two and then redo it again. And it was a process. And I found that so interesting because I hadn't anticipated that because I'm a checklist person. I just, that's what I do. And I'm like, by the end of this week, I'm going to get this done and this done and this done. And I was like, no, wait, hold up. I need time on this one. And yeah.
And that's that. Thank you. And I think that was kind of part of my goals that, as mental health people managing mental health, there's no silver bullet, right? And everybody's kind of finding their own kind of resources to kind of find ways to cope and manage mental health a little bit better. And, so I wanted to make sure I gave a lot of different tools in that workshop just to cater to, everybody and make it accessible to everybody too, right? Because I know it's still a hard topic to talk about.
It is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Janet.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that. And I was very, very honored to be able to be a part of that as well. And
yeah.
Be able to
you,
that. And
great
I
quotes.
So.
Yeah.
How about you, Steph?
Well, now I want to take that course.
Totally, you need to take that course.
I'm going to.
It's fun, and I love the videos because, sorry, Jason, I'm going to embarrass you, but you're really cute on camera. So adorable. It's just, I was like, I just want to go up there and hug him. Cute.
Oh, thanks. That's the first time anybody said that about the course, and I'll welcome it. Thank you.
You get the cute factor.
Like, I wanted to hug you. And then, it's hard to talk about. So it's like you don't want to be dragged down because the whole point is we're trying to uplift ourselves. And so I appreciate the fact that you put in so much effort to make the tools accessible, but at the same time uplifting, so that it always ended on something positive and reflective, and just something that you could really, really bite into. And that's what I appreciated about it. So.
Yeah. And just one more thing about those workshops I just wanted to add to both of you and whoever's watching is that my teenage son, he's 17 now, struggles with depression, anxiety. He's actually the one who helped me do the video production on it. So, I kind of gave him the storyboard of everything and the tools and everything. So it was kind of a subliminal plug to kind of help him as well.
That's awesome.
And he did a great job. He did
absolutely. The music and everything was amazing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, take the course, Steph.
I will. I definitely will. Yeah.
So you worked with Janet. You did some work with Janet before.
Yeah. So I do. I'm an EFT. Have you ever heard of EFT? It's emotional freedom technique.
No, she explained it very briefly. Is it kind of like tapping?
Yeah, it's tapping. It's like, there's a protocol or a little algorithm. And so I've been doing that for the last 16 years or so. I've become a trainer in with the AMET, which is the largest volunteer-run organization for tapping, which is kind of nice. So I'm a trainer there, and I've been doing the EFT for a long time, and I've just developed something that I had to come up with a name for it because I've been studying something else called the single paradigm, and it's about the nature of how we experience life. And so what I've been doing is integrating that with the tapping and getting really fantastic results because I'm realizing it's so much easier than trying to hunt down every old memory. I don't have to do that anymore. So I'm calling it Ultra EFT, and the Ultra stands for Understanding Life Through Realization and Awareness, EFT. And so that's something that I'm working on developing. I've been bringing it out to my clients and really having so much fun with it. So there's going to be some more of that coming. And I do some online programs right now. I just ran a Transform Your Financial Life for entrepreneurs, and I'm going to be running the Transform Your Financial Life in January for everybody. And I love tapping and I love sharing it with people. So,
and you sound very passionate. You sound very genuinely passionate about it, about helping others with it. Yeah.
I am. Well, and I suffered from severe depression my whole life until I was 35. And so I'm in my 50s now, and a combination of energy therapies and such helped me. And I have been 100% free of depression since 35, which is I started my life then. So it's because of that. I know it's possible to live a life depression free. Yeah. And that is why I do what I do, because I love helping people with depression and anxiety too, because it's like, you don't have to live like this.
You don't have to.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't. There is freedom. And I didn't know that for all those years. So I hear you on that. And mental health is so important.
And you have a website? I'd love to check it out.
Yeah. It's innerpeaceandflow.com.
Innerpeaceandflow.com.
Peace and flow, dude. Stephanie Wood is already taken.
That's
Thank you.
really exciting though, Steph. That's super
Yeah.
exciting. Ultra. And I like the fact that it's ultra. Because,
I know, doesn't it just sound powerful? It is
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah.
you're going to
Great
go for it.
and I love the fact that there's an acronym, you know.
It took me a while to figure that out, but I knew I
Yeah.
had to come up with something because it was very different from what I was doing before.
Hmm.
So I'm like, it's just getting right to the heart of things really fast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I find fascinating with the connections while we're on the topic of it is just listening to the backstories of people. Everybody's got a story, right?
Absolutely.
It really is. It brings so much more relationships more into context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. So thank you guys. I love you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Janet. Really,
We love you
really
too.
appreciate this. What a wonderful idea, Janet,
Yeah.
and to do this, and
Yeah.
let's do it
Thank you
again.
for this. Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity.
Definitely. I mean, I this is my first kick at the can, and just learning new things, and now I know how to use Zoom, which is kind of cool. I can add that to my list. See, my checklist, my list. I keep bringing up my list. I don't know why, but I have a fetish with a list. I don't know.
I like them too, to be honest. So.
But, no, I definitely appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for entertaining my whim to do this thing and such short notice. I'm like, I'm just gonna email you in the middle of the night and just be like, hey, you want to do this? It's a crazy idea I've got.
Well, that's cool because it felt really natural, very organic for me. Yeah,
Me too.
That's awesome.
it was a very, very nice conversations with both of you. Stephanie, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Likewise. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, new friend.
Yeah, there you go.
Connection.
Check off your list if you have a list, like Janet.
So you guys got planned for the rest of today?
Well, after this, I'm heading out to play basketball with my son,
Oh,
and
awesome.
and just
Hang
whatever
out.
else. Yeah, whatever else comes my way. Put up the Christmas decorations that time of year again.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm delaying because I'm like, oh, it's so sunny. It's too early.
I know. It doesn't quite feel like Christmas yet, but
No.
I gotta get going.
Yeah.
I got a tiny little tree this tall, and
Aw.
that-
Awesome.
And we're heading to the gym after this. I'm ready
Are
for
you?
some cardio. Yeah.
I got to go to the gym later today, so.
really, I would have expected you to have gotten your workout done already this morning.
I would have,
Yeah.
but I was out late last night, so
Yeah.
and I got up this morning, and I'm like, I could go to the gym, but I don't want to miss this call. I'm trying to make sure I'm like, ready to go, and I'm not sort of all sweaty and gross looking. I'll go afterwards. It's all good. So thank you again, both of you. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Yeah, definitely. And who knows, you may be getting another call because it's kind of fun.
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
love it. Bring it.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay,
All right.
take care, you guys.
Bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye.